Since December 2013, a bloody civil war has ravaged the newly independent nation of South Sudan. On one side, troops and militia backing the President Salva Kiir. On the other, those supporting his deputy and rival, Riek Machar. The fighting has caused massive upheaval. All in all, hundreds of thousands have been killed, raped and mutilated. Millions forced to leave their homes, many of them fleeing to neighboring countries. A peace deal has been signed, but the situation is far from settled. Clear, however, is that atrocities have been committed by both sides. A central question now: how did the government, troops and the militia manage to continue the fighting? After all, it's expensive to fight wars. The key is the country's #1 source of income: oil. A United Nations human rights report in February said the oil industry is fueling the war. The UN report says, quote, "The state-owned Nilepet oil company's operations have been characterized by a total lack of transparency and independent oversight, allegedly diverting oil revenues into the coffers of elites in the government." The report goes on to say oil revenues and income from other natural resources have continued to fund the war, enabling its continuation and the resulting human rights violations. The country's oil sector is supervised by the oil minister Ezekiel Lol Gatkuoth, and today, for the first time since the UN Human Rights Report, talks to Jazeera. Mr. Ezekiel Lol Gatkuoth, thank you very much for talking to us.
Thank you very much for having me here.
Let's start with the role of the oil industry in South Sudan. Can you tell me how significant it is for the country?
Well, the Republic of South Sudan became independent in 2011, and we took from Sudan, of course, and we took 75% of the oil from Sudan, and 90% of the budget of the Republic of South Sudan is from oil. So significantly, the role that the oil is playing in the Republic of South Sudan is very, very significant.
And the data suggests that 60% of your GDP is coming from oil. How do you think you are going forward? We've had some tumultuous years in the oil industry. Are you planning to diversify your economy or further consolidate the role of oil in your economy?
Well, our focus is #1, we need to increase the production, because before the crisis in 2013, we were producing 350,000 barrels a day. But currently we are producing 180,000 barrels a day. So we want to go back to where we used to be. That's one. #2, the blocks that has been dormant for the last 5 years, we are resuming the production there in block 1, 2, and 4. We have resumed the production. #3, our focus is to make sure that the new blocks, B1 and B2, and then A1 to A6, we wanted to have new players, because the players that we are having in South Sudan, we have CNPC of China, Petronas of Malaysia, ONGC of India. These are the players, and plus Nilepet, which is the national oil company. So we wanted to move quickly to make sure that we resume the production and increase the production. That's one. 2, we need to diversify it. We have a lot of resources. So South Sudan is blessed with a lot of resources. Agriculture is one of them. The longest river in the world, Nile, is one. We have a lot of fish. We have a lot of ecotourism. It's actually a part of the diversity that we can utilize to diversify our economy.
Well, those are really great ambitions. But would you agree that the benefits of the oil revenues of South Sudan haven't really been able to translate into growth for the people of South Sudan? For instance, South Sudan ranks 178 out of 180 countries in the corruption index. So clearly there's more that needs to be done. Are you cognizant of the fact, and what are you doing about it?
Well, corruption is everywhere in the world. Even here in Doha, corruption is there. The most important thing is, what are you doing about it? The president is actually having a policy which is zero tolerance on corruptions. Anybody who is found to be corrupt, that person will actually face justice. And this is what we have been doing. Of course, in 2013, we have crisis in the country. And this is actually a setback to the country and to the people of South Sudan. But thank God we managed to fix it, because the president is actually for peace. He has been championing this peace for many, many years. And now we have an agreement signed last year in 2018. And this agreement, we have decided to champion peace and implement the peace agreement. So now the focus is now, since we have peace, we will now move forward to build this country and also to provide social services for the people of South Sudan.
But do you agree that so far it hasn't happened?
Well, we have been trying. It has not happened in a way that we wanted to have it because of the crisis in the country, but we wanted to make sure that we wanted to do better than what we are doing now.
So oil sector is crucial to this ambition to provide for the people of South Sudan. Let's talk about the oil sector in itself. Who are the players and how does the oil ministry operate? Because as you mentioned, there's a lot of investment that is coming in from foreign investors who obviously want to make money for themselves rather than people of South Sudan.
Well, in the exploration production sharing agreement is very clear. It articulated who should get what. As we speak now, we have CNPC from China. We have Petronas from Malaysia. We have also ONGC from India. And clearly it is stated that oil will be divided into profit oil and cost oil. The cost oil is 40% of the total production will go for cost oil. 60% is profit oil. That will be shared by the partners and also by the government. Government of the Republic of South Sudan will take 80% of it. So, and this 80% of it, this is what we will use to provide services to the people of South Sudan. Nobody is being cheated, and we are very happy with the partnership that we have been having with CNPC and all the partners.
The website of your company says that your ministry has a supervisory role in all oil dealings in the country, whether it's local companies or foreign companies. Can you describe to us what that supervisory role entails, and what do you do to make sure that the laws of South Sudan are implemented in letter and spirit?
Well, one thing that we are doing is to make sure that the environment is protected in the country. All the oil companies that are operating in the Republic of South Sudan must abide by the rules and regulations of the environment. So environment is one of the area we will not compromise on. One is the local content. The local people must benefit from the oil by providing services. Community development fund is there to build schools, to build clinics, and also agriculture and water, clean drinking water. And that has been actually happening in the Republic of South Sudan. And this is what we are doing also to make sure that even the contracts that are being awarded out, South Sudanese are in the center of this.
Extremely serious allegations have been leveled by the UN Human Rights Commission in South Sudan against the revenue of oil being used by various militias to carry out crimes which amount to heinous crimes, and we'll go into details of what those crimes are. Are you aware, and what is your reaction to that report?
Well, the enemies of peace are actually categorizing us this way. People are actually saying the oil money is being used to fuel this war. I have been in the Ministry of Petroleum since 2016, and I can assure you there is no single dollar that has been used to buy arms in the ministry and even in the country. And the focus of the President of the Republic of South Sudan has been to bring peace, because he knows very well that you will never actually bring any sustainable development without peace. War will continue to create problems to the country, and it will continue to create miseries to the people of South Sudan. The focus is peace, peace, peace. We are not investing in war, and we will not invest at all in war.
Accusations that have been leveled against these militias of the kind of crimes that they're committing. It's rape. They're burning people inside their homes when they're alive. And these militias are supposedly being funded by someone. And this report cites a paper trail which links companies like Nilepet to be behind these, behind the operations and funding. That you said that there is not a dollar that has been spent by the oil ministry, but it's not directly the oil ministry. It's people who are related to the oil ministry who are spending that money.
Nilepet has not been financing any activities that is related to violence in the country. I can actually tell you this because I know the activities and I know what they are receiving in terms of money, whether it is from the consortium where they are having 5% of the shares there, or from downstream providing fuel to the country. I'm not saying that there are no crimes being committed in the country. And that's why the President has constituted a panel to investigate all those who are actually committing atrocities. And some of them have been sentenced to death, and they are actually being prosecuted. And that's why it is actually very important to note that the president will not tolerate any criminal activities, whether you are in the army or you are in the police or you are in the national security. He has been so firm in fighting those who are committing atrocities. But there is a difference between individual crimes in the uniform and actually a crime being committed by the state. There are individuals who are actually committing crimes and they are in the service, and when they are discovered, they are actually
So
held
are there
accountable.
any people from the oil sector that who are being investigated right now?
No, I'm not aware of any.
Okay, so let me cite this UN report to you. And let me quote. They said the state-owned Nilepet oil company's operations have been characterized by a total lack of transparency and independent oversight. And it's diverting oil revenues into the coffers of elite in the government who are behind the funding of these militias carrying out these heinous crimes. Are you saying this is all made of thin air?
You know, they're human beings. They're writing reports and they have opinions. Some of them, they are not happy with South Sudan. Some of them are not happy with our leadership. Some of them are even now criticizing the agreement that we have signed. If you are for peace, why would you criticize peace that has been signed to transition the country and the people of South Sudan from war to peace? Some people are actually not happy with this agreement, simply because they don't like the players, those who brought peace, like the IGAD region, and also those who are actually continuing to participate in the government. They are not happy with it. I'm not surprised that people like those that I have described are also participating in writing reports like this, so that they brand the country as a bad country. But for me, South Sudan is actually full of hope. Its future is very bright. We need to organize ourselves, like what President Salva did now, bringing peace, make sure that there is internal cohesion in the country, and then we will now deliver services and develop this country. We don't need anybody from outside to tell us what to do. We will do it ourselves.
But what these people are identifying is not branding South Sudan, as you said, as in any brush. They're very specific about the kind of people who are being funded by various state institutes to carry out crimes. And you said that there are people who are involved in this on individual capacity. So is this something which is endemic? How deep does it go into the oil ministry, into Nilepet, and into the government of South Sudan?
Well, as I said it before, if there are individuals even in this country and in the world who are actually criminal-minded people. They commit crimes, and what we do as a government is to hold them accountable. And this is what we have been doing. In the Ministry of Petroleum, Nilepet, or the country, we are not condoning criminal activities or those who are actually raping people. I have daughters. I have a wife. And all of our leaders, they have. Nobody will actually condone somebody else to rape your daughter or your wife. Anybody who are saying that the government is condoning it or is supporting it or is financing it, they just don't know our culture. South Sudanese, you will never allow a rape in South Sudan, and we will never tolerate this.
But yet the rapes continue, the violence continues.
That's why we are punishing them.
The violence against children continues. Yes, you say that it is against the culture of South Sudan, but it is being committed by parties to the conflict in South Sudan. These are not people who come from outside.
Most of the reports that you are actually reading, majority of them are fabricated. They are not actually telling the truth. Even the success we had now for the last 3 years, they are not being reflected in the report.
But it is not
even
just
the
one
agreement
source
that we have signed now in 2018, September 12, 2018. It is not being appreciated, it is not being reflected. And that's why we have actually come to the conclusion that we need to bring peace to ourselves as country, as people of South Sudan. We need to reach out. Most of the oppositions now, all of them, they are in Juba, the capital of South Sudan. We are working together. My president went to Vatican a week ago. He met with the Holy See Pope Francis, and the Pope prayed for the people of South Sudan. And the whole leadership will be going to Vatican first week of April to make sure that there is peace and reconciliation and healing in the country, so that we can deliver now services to the people of South Sudan. We have started delivering services, but with small pockets of fightings here and there, we will not be able to do more. But as we speak now, there is total peace in the country.
Well, there are 400,000 people who've been killed since the war started. There's more than a few million who are displaced. There's fighting that still continues in like you said, in pockets of the country. I don't think that anyone is doubting here the intentions of your government, but how much of those intentions are actually going to translate into actionable progress for the people? That is something which your government so far has failed.
That's what I'm actually telling you now. The number one action that we have done is bring peace. We have signed peace, and the peace is being implemented. That's one. Two, we have allowed all the opposition leaders to come into the country. They're now in Juba. They are in the country. They are feeling secure and safe. That's one thing. Number three, the president has launched development projects now by building highways in South Sudan, using the crude oil to build roads and power. This is actually some of the things that we are translating into action, not words. This is what we are doing. And this is now myself and my colleagues in the government, we are also working to make sure that the production is increased and we resume the oil blocks that has been dormant for the last 5 years. This is also going to be translated into money so that we can have more money, and then we provide services to the people of South Sudan.
But that's the problem, that we know that with more money comes more corruption. And that's what various reports have been citing, that a lack of transparency, a lack of third-party valuations, a lack of people giving people hope that their government representatives are actually going to deliver for them. And the way this has been happening, there's talk about $80 million which has been divested from various oil revenues into these militias, not exactly just for procuring guns, but this has been going into the aviation industry, which is held by, various government officials who are currently part of the government, and their wives and their spouses. So this is an endemic problem. What is the concrete step that you're taking so far? What you've been telling me are great intentions, but what has been done so far, and how will you defeat it?
People are being dismissed. People are being held accountable.
Cite who?
Well, there are former ministers who were dismissed before me. There are people who are actually in jail because of corruption. We have been actually really targeting people who have been actually involved in corruption, and they are jailed and they are prosecuted. To me, the president is actually doing the right thing, and we are open book. In the Ministry of Petroleum or Finance or the whole government, we are open book, because basically the sales of the oil is an international commodity, and we transfer the money from the buyer to the central bank account in New York, not in Juba. We have an account in the Federal Reserve Bank in New York, in USA. This is actually, yes, definitely. I'm not saying that there is no corruption. There are corruption everywhere in the world, but the most important thing is how you deal with it.
Mr. Gatkuoth, your background is from a criminal justice perspective. You're in a position where your country can greatly benefit from the proper functioning of your ministry. What do you bring into this ministry? Are you personally satisfied of sitting in that chair for 3 years and achieving what you have?
I'm very proud of what I have done under the President's guidance and leadership, President Salva Kiir. I'm also very proud that the colleagues that have been working in the government and also in the Ministry of Petroleum, they are doing very well. And I'm very happy that also we have a neighbor, Sudan, that is cooperating with us very well. President Bashir managed to sit together with his colleagues, President of Uganda, President of Kenya, President of the Prime Minister of Ethiopia. They worked together and they brought peace to the people of South Sudan. So the excellent relation that we are having with Sudan is also contributing positively in resuming the production and increasing the oil production. So far I'm very, very proud of what I have done, and we will continue to do more under the leadership of President Salva.
Is there something that you wanted to achieve and you haven't been able to?
Well, we are actually focusing to make sure that we have more investors to come and invest in block B1 and B2. We have A1 all the way to A6. We have E1. We also have E2. These are the empty blocks. By the way, South Sudan is floating on oil. South Sudan is full of oil. Only 12% of the whole country is explored. 88% is not yet explored. So that's why I'm here. And I will be also traveling worldwide to make sure that the narrative of oil is not what the reports is saying. The narrative of South Sudan is peace, prosperity, full of hope, and we have a lot of resources that we can use for the benefit of the people.
Well, that's a great public relations campaign, and I think you're doing a great job in taking it abroad. Let me
It's not a public relations campaign.
Let me cite
it's
the United Nations, the United States rather, the Commerce Department right now, because you said you need to bring foreign direct investment into the country. This is the United States Commerce Department saying sanctions on 15 South Sudanese oil operators. They were important sources of cash for the government in an action aimed at increasing pressure on President Kiir to end the country's conflict and humanitarian crisis. So it's not just the United Nations report. This is the largest oil producing country in the world. These are the United States government, which is going to be either your partner or going against you. How do you plan to bring in more investors when your country's prognosis is quite opposite to what you've been saying?
Honestly speaking, U.S. is a friend, is going to continue to be a friend, because they have been with us during the war, and they have been with us when we were conducting a referendum. Myself, I was also privileged to be in New York and in Washington at the same time. They will continue to be our friends. What they have imposed is not sanctions, it's restrictions. And these restrictions to these oil companies, basically they are saying, if you want to procure any equipment for the operation of the oil, you need to take a permission from the Department of Commerce. This is very unfortunate, and we are also appealing to the U.S. government to ease that restriction, because it is not allowing us to do what we wanted to do. By the way, we will continue to be friends to the U.S., just like what we are also doing now. We are a friend to China. We are also a friend to Russia. We wanted to make sure that everybody in South Sudan is highly welcome, and we make use of the resources that we are having. We are not very greedy in keeping it for ourselves.
Well, the message is peace and friendship. Your friendship with China, we all know every single block that you cited is about 40% of their investment. They're coming in. But your friendship with the United States does not seem to be heading in that direction, because like you said, these restrictions have come because these individuals or companies have been found to have been some sort of ties with the violence in South Sudan. You can't escape it unless you take some real action that the world would look and see and say, now that's a place we can do business with.
Well, just to tell you that yes, we are friends to U.S., but we wanted to also appeal to the U.S. that you don't punish your friend when you are trying to advise them. You advise them politely, tell them you are going wrong here, and then you can fix it here. And that's why we are actually appealing to them to ease those restrictions, so that we will continue to be in the same road. And we wanted to make sure that U.S. continue to be our ally in the region, and we will continue to work together.
But what I'm trying to get at is that you are going to appeal to them, and you're going to say that what you said was either true or false, and this is what we've done. So what is it that you've done which is going to persuade the Americans to lift those restrictions?
But sometimes, your friend can sometimes say things about you which are not true. Then you have to discuss them quietly and say, this is what you have said about me, but this is what I am. And I believe that these restrictions will be lifted.
But right now what you're saying is that you're denying the United Nations, you're denying the United States, you're denying allegations that have been leveled by your own tribes. People in the Nuer tribe have leveled allegations against the government that you represent. So all of this can't be completely false. There has to be some truth to it.
Honestly speaking, the conflict in South Sudan has nothing to do with tribes, whether it is Dinka or Nuer or Bari or other tribes, no. It has something to do with the political struggle, the power. If you quote, for example, Dr. Riek Machar, wanted to take over from President Salva Kiir, using violence. What are you going to do? Then definitely that is a recipe for disaster, and that's what we went through in 2013, and we don't want to repeat this again. Anybody, the focus now is have peace, make sure that we focus in implementing the agreement, and then in 3 years from now, we will go for election. And whoever is elected by the people of South Sudan will be the President of the Republic of South Sudan. We don't need to fight again. We don't need to subject our people into this suffering. We just wanted to have peace, so that President Salva Kiir will contest. If he's elected, I'm sure he will be elected, and then he will be the President of the Republic of South Sudan. The rest of the people can wait for another 5 years.
Mr. Ezekiel Lol Gatkuoth, the Petroleum Minister for South Sudan, thank you very much for talking to Al Jazeera.
Thank you very much for having me.